The gas station looked normal at first, flickering lights, the faint smell of gasoline, an ordinary night shift. But then you notice the rules, strange rules, ones no one talks about, and ones everyone breaks. I thought ignoring them was harmless. I thought I was careful. I was wrong. Because somewhere in the shadows, something watches. Something that punishes mistakes. And tonight, I'm about to learn the cost of breaking every single one. If you ever find yourself working the night shift at a gas station in Ohio, remember this. The rules aren't written to keep the customers safe. They're written to keep you alive. I didn't believe that at first. Nobody does. But let me start at the beginning. The gas station sits along Highway 33, a stretch of cracked asphalt that cuts through cornfields and long stretches of forest. At night, the road looks endless, just two white lines swallowed by the dark. During the day, it doesn't look much better. The building itself is small, almost forgettable. 3 pumps outside, each lit by buzzing fluorescent lamps that flicker when the weather gets cold. The store is just 4 aisles of snacks, sodas, and dusty motor oil. A cooler in the back, half of the lights dead inside it. A restroom that always smells faintly of mildew, no matter how much bleach you use. And behind the counter, an ancient cash register that jams if you press the buttons too fast. If you drove past it, you wouldn't think twice. Just another rural pit stop. But when you're inside it, alone at 3 in the morning, it feels different. I took the job out of desperation, like most people do. I'd been laid off from a warehouse, rent was due, and the help wanted sign in the window felt like fate. It didn't matter that the hours were graveyard shift. Didn't matter that everyone warned me nobody lasts long working nights at that station. I figured, it's a gas station. How hard could it be? Denise, the manager, was the one who hired me. A woman in her 50s with tired eyes and a smoker's rasp. She slid the paperwork across the counter, had me sign my name a dozen times, and then handed me a key. "You'll be fine," she said, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. Then she added, "Just don't screw up the rules." I thought she meant company policy. Don't steal. Don't drink on the job. Don't let customers pump gas without paying first. Turns out, she meant something else entirely. My first week was training with Marcus, one of the other clerks. He worked days but agreed to cover a few nights to show me the ropes. Marcus was the kind of guy who'd been in the town too long, mid-30s, permanent 5 o'clock shadow, and a laugh that always sounded forced. He taught me how to reset the pumps, how to check the cameras, how to run the register when the scanner froze up. Easy stuff. But the most important thing he taught me was how to handle the nights. "You'll see weird shit," he told me on my second shift. "Don't overthink it. Just follow the rules." "What rules?" I asked. He just gave me a look. That night, the silence got to me. You don't realize how heavy silence is until you're the only one awake in a 30-mile radius. The clock ticks louder. The hum of the soda machine sounds like breathing. Every car that pulls into the lot feels like a trespasser. Truckers came through sometimes, dead-eyed and wired on caffeine. A couple locals, usually drunk, stumbling in for cigarettes or cheap beer. But after midnight, the place emptied out. Just me, the buzzing lights, and the black windows reflecting my own tired face. And that's when I started noticing little things. The chime above the door would ring, but nobody came inside. The lights would flicker, but only between 3:30 and 4 o'clock a.m. The phone would ring, and when I answered, no one was there, just breathing. I told Marcus about it. He didn't laugh. He just said, "You'll get used to it." It wasn't until my 3rd week that I saw the list. I'd gone into the break room to microwave a cup of coffee. The break room is barely big enough for 2 people, 1 stained table, a corkboard with the schedule, and a microwave that rattles every time it runs. That's when I saw it. A sheet of yellowing paper pinned dead center on the board. At the top, written in thick black marker, "Rules for the night shift." I thought it was a prank. Some dumb joke the clerks had written to freak out the new guy. But when I leaned in and read them, my stomach tightened. They said, "Always greet the customer, even if you don't see anyone come in. If someone asks for gas after 2:30 a.m., politely refuse. Do not argue, do not explain. Never look at the man at pump 3 for more than 10 seconds. If the phone rings and the caller asks for the attendant, hang up immediately. Do not, under any circumstances, open the basement door. If you see your own car pull into the lot, go into the restroom and lock the door until it leaves. Between 3:30 and 4 a.m., keep the lights on, even if they flicker. Especially if they flicker. If you find yourself alone in the store, but the door chime goes off, smile, say, 'Welcome,' and don't stop smiling until it's quiet again." I laughed out loud, out of pure disbelief. That's when Denise walked in. She caught me standing there, grinning at the list like it was a joke, but she didn't smile back. Her face was pale, drawn, her voice low. "Don't mess with the rules," she said. "As long as you follow them, you'll be fine." Then she left without another word. That night was my first shift alone. Marcus had stopped covering for me. Denise said I was ready. I remember sitting behind the counter, staring at the clock as it ticked past midnight. The rules kept circling in my head. Most of them sounded ridiculous. Some sounded downright impossible. But the way Denise had looked at me, it stuck. 1 a.m. came and went. 2 a.m. passed, nothing strange. 2:13 a.m., I held my breath, half expecting someone to walk in and demand gas. Nobody did. By 3 o'clock, the silence had grown so heavy I felt like I couldn't breathe. The lights hummed. The wind rattled the glass doors. And then, at exactly 3:17 a.m., the door chime rang. I looked up. No one had opened the door. No one was inside. The lot outside was empty. But the chime echoed through the store all the same. My hands shook. I remembered the first rule. Always greet the customer. So I forced a smile, even though my lips trembled, and I said, "Welcome." The silence that followed was the longest 30 seconds of my life. And then, just as suddenly as it came, the air felt lighter. The hum of the lights seemed normal again. My heartbeat slowed. But I didn't laugh this time. I knew then the rules weren't a joke. They were the only thing keeping me alive. After that first night, the chime with no customer, I never laughed at the rules again. I didn't tell anyone about it either. Not my sister, not my friends, not even Denise. What was I supposed to say? Hey, the air in the store got heavy when I didn't greet a ghost? No, I kept it to myself. Instead, I memorized the rules. I studied them like scripture. Every night before my shift, I'd read them once more. My own little ritual. By week 2, they weren't even rules anymore. They were habits, instinct. I greeted every customer, even when I didn't see anyone. I left the basement door locked. I kept the lights on through the flickers. And for a while, nothing happened. My shifts fell into a rhythm. Truckers came in for gas, locals came in for smokes, and sometimes teenagers dared each other to buy the cheapest hot dogs we sold. But the real rhythm was in the silence. 1 soda machine hum louder. 2:30 yo watch the door. Don't sell gas. 3:17 the chime might ring. 3:30 to 4 o'clock, the lights flicker. Smile, pretend everything is normal. It was hell, sure, but it was a predictable hell. Until James showed up, the new guy. James was 21, cocky, and thought the whole town was beneath him. He'd just moved from Columbus, said this was a temporary job until he saved enough for California. The first night I met him, he leaned on the counter, scrolling on his phone, smirking like the whole world was a joke. "You really buy into that list?" he asked, nodding at the break room wall. "Yes," I said. He snorted. "Man, you guys are backwards out here. What, you all afraid of ghosts?" I didn't answer. He laughed, the kind of laugh people use when they're trying to show off. "Tell you what, next time the chime rings for nobody, I'll just ignore it, you'll see." Nothing happens. I remember the way my stomach turned when he said that. Like hearing someone casually say they were going to step in front of a train. I should have warned him harder. I should have begged him not to. But James didn't listen to anyone. The night of the chime. It happened on a Thursday. The store was quiet. A storm had rolled through earlier, leaving the air damp and heavy. The smell of wet asphalt clung to everything. James and I were working together, me training him on the register. He wasn't paying attention, of course. He was busy talking about LAA, about palm trees, about how he was going to get discovered as an actor. 2:30 passed, no one came for gas. 3 ticked by. The storm outside settled into silence. And then, at exactly 3:17 a.m., the chime rang. Ding. The sound cut through the air like a knife. I froze. My blood went cold. I looked at the door. No one was there. Of course no one was there. I opened my mouth. The words were automatic now. "Welcome." But James cut me off. He chuckled, shaking his head. "See? This is what I'm talking about," he said. "It's just broken. Watch this." He leaned back on the counter, crossed his arms, and said nothing. No. The lights flickered. Once. Twice. My heart slammed against my ribs. My mouth stretched into a smile on instinct, even though it hurt. But James just stood there, arms folded, rolling his eyes. And then, we heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps across the tile. But the floor was empty. I couldn't breathe. My cheeks ached from forcing the smile. James's smirk faltered. He looked around, unease finally creeping into his face. "Okay," he muttered. "That's creepy." The footsteps stopped behind the counter, right where James was standing. I couldn't see anything, but I swear the air around him shimmered. "Say it," I hissed through clenched teeth. He shook his head. "This is..." And then he screamed. His body arched like something had grabbed him from behind. His phone clattered to the floor. He thrashed, eyes wide with terror, clawing at his throat, though nothing was there. The lights flickered wildly, buzzing, popping, and then held steady. James collapsed. For a long moment, the store was silent. My face still locked in a grin, I whispered, "Welcome." And just like that, the air shifted. The heaviness lifted. But James didn't get up. I knelt beside him. His eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling. His mouth twisted into the faintest trace of a smile, like the rules had forced it onto his face at the last second. But he wasn't breathing. He never would again. When Denise came in to relieve me that morning, I told her James quit. I couldn't tell her what really happened. How could I? She didn't ask questions. Maybe she already knew. Because I saw what happens when you don't. And the chime still rings. Every night. Not all customers come inside. Some just wait for you to notice them. After James died, things changed. I didn't say he died, of course. Not out loud. Not to Denise, not to the cops, not to anyone. Officially, he quit. Walked out mid-shift, left his phone and his stuff behind, and never came back. In a small town like ours, people didn't ask too many questions. If someone left, they were just gone. It happens all the time. Folks pack up in the middle of the night, chasing a better life somewhere else. But I knew the truth. James didn't quit. James broke the rules. And the rules don't forgive. After that night, the list stopped feeling like words on a page. It felt like chains around my wrists. A leash around my throat. Every shift, I felt those rules tightening. Every time the chime rang, I forced a smile. Every time the lights flickered, I held my breath and waited. I was alive, yes, but it didn't feel like living. Most nights, I stayed inside, safer that way. But sometimes I had to step out, to empty trash, to mop up spilled diesel, to deal with a customer who couldn't figure out the card reader. That's when I realized something about the pumps. They weren't all the same. Pump 1 and 2 worked fine. They were closest to the store, under the brightest light. Pump 4 was always busted. Out of order, tape flapping in the wind. I didn't mind. The fewer pumps to deal with, the better. But Pump 3 was different. It sat a little farther from the others, right at the edge of the light. Not broken, not perfect. Just off. The numbers clicked slower, the nozzle felt heavier, and whenever someone used it, I swear the shadows clung a little longer around their car. I'd read the rule a dozen times, but I never understood it. Never look at the man at Pump 3 for more than 10 seconds. Why 10 seconds? Why that pump? Why a man? I told myself it was just another scare tactic, like the chime. Like the basement door. But then I saw him. It was a Tuesday, just after 3 am. The night was cold, the lot empty. I was stocking candy bars when I heard the faint hiss of a pump handle lifting. Strange. I hadn't seen anyone pull in. I glanced outside through the front glass. And there he was, Pump 3. A man stood there, still as stone, one hand resting on the pump. I couldn't see him clearly. The lights buzzed and flickered overhead, throwing him in and out of shadow. He wasn't moving. He wasn't pumping gas. Just standing. At first, I thought he was turned away from me, facing the dark road. Then I thought maybe he was facing the store, watching me. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't tell. His outline shimmered faintly, like heat rising off asphalt. My heart kicked up. I counted in my head. 1, 2, 3. At 7 seconds, I realized my breathing had gone shallow. My chest ached. At 9, his head twitched. A sharp, unnatural movement, too fast, like a frame missing in a film reel. I tore my gaze away, my eyes burned. My throat felt raw, like I'd been holding in a scream. When I looked back a minute later, Pump 3 was empty. The man was gone. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about him. The man at Pump 3. I started timing myself every shift. If I heard a car outside, I'd check the pumps, count the seconds. Never let my eyes linger, but curiosity gnawed at me. What happens if I look longer? What's he doing out there? What does he want? I thought of James, gasping for air, his smile twisted into death. And still I wondered. The test came 2 weeks later. I'd stepped outside to empty the trash. The night was thick with fog, the kind that clings to your clothes and makes the world feel smaller. And there he was again, Pump 3. This time, I couldn't pretend I hadn't seen him. He was standing perfectly still, one hand on the pump, head angled ever so slightly toward me. The fog swirled, but never touched him. I knew I shouldn't. I knew the rule, but I counted anyway. 1, 2, 3. He didn't move. 4. My vision blurred at the edges. 6, 7. The buzzing lights dimmed, flickered. 8, 9. The fog parted just enough for me to see his face. Only, it wasn't the face. Not exactly. Just the suggestion of one, as if someone had started sketching it in pencil and given up halfway through. 10. Whispers filled my ears like 100 voices overlapping, all saying my name. I stumbled back, heart hammering, eyes burning. When I blinked, Pump 3 was empty again. But my ears rang with those whispers for the rest of the night. The next night, a trucker came in. A big guy, beard down to his chest, eyes bloodshot from too many hours on the road. He bought coffee and stood at the counter a moment, staring out at the lot. "Pump 3 still working?" he asked, voice low. I froze. "Yeah," he shook his head. "Don't use it. Not worth the trouble." I wanted to ask him what he meant, but before I could, he grabbed his cup and left. That was the first and last time anyone acknowledged it out loud. Now I keep my eyes down. I don't test myself anymore, because I know what I saw in the fog, and sometimes, I swear I still hear those whispers when I close my eyes. But the worst part? Last night, I glanced out at the pumps, and the man at Pump 3 was closer, not at the pump, not under the buzzing light. Closer. Standing in the lot, halfway between Pump 3 and the glass doors. Waiting. After I saw the man at Pump 3, or whatever it was, I stopped questioning the rules entirely. I didn't need to wonder anymore. I didn't want answers, I just wanted to survive. But the thing about survival is, it's never quiet. It's never peaceful. It's never easy. You can ignore the pumps. You can keep the lights on. You can force a smile when the chime rings. But how do you ignore the phone? Most people don't think about gas station phones. They're relics. Old, beige, rotary push-button dinosaurs bolted to the counter, only used when credit card machines go down or a trucker forgets their cell. But at night, it feels different. The phone sits there, heavy, silent, coiled cord like a sleeping snake. And when it rings, it's not just a sound, it's a violation. A reminder that someone, somewhere knows this place exists. That someone wants to reach you. And when you're alone in a gas station at 3 in the morning, with the cornfields pressing in on all sides and the highway empty as a graveyard road, the ring doesn't sound mechanical, it sounds alive. The first time it happened, I almost didn't answer. It was 2:45. Ame was restocking the cooler when the shrill ring cut through the silence. I froze. The sound felt wrong. Too sharp, too loud. Still, I picked up. "Gas and go, this is nothing." Just a faint hiss, like static, or breathing. "Hello," I whispered. The hiss grew louder, pulsing in and out, like someone exhaling into the receiver. I hung up. My hands shook as I slid the phone back into its cradle. I told myself it was a prank. Some drunk calling the wrong number, but deep down, I knew. It was the beginning. The second call came 2 nights later. Same time, same sharp ring. I answered, my throat dry. And this time, a voice spoke. "May I speak to the attendant?" Flat, emotionless, like a bad recording. But underneath it, layered too thin to catch all at once, were other tones. Like there were multiple people speaking in unison, slightly out of sync. My stomach dropped. The rule: if the caller asks for the attendant, hang up immediately. I slammed the phone down. The rings stopped instantly, cut clean, leaving the store so quiet I could hear the blood pounding in my ears. I stared at the phone for the rest of the night, afraid it would ring again. It didn't. Not then. But the calls didn't stop. Every few nights, always around the same time. Sometimes I answered and heard nothing but static, sometimes the breathing, and sometimes the voice. "May I speak to the attendant?" Always the same words, always the same flat tone, until it wasn't. Because after a while, the voice started to change. The flatness gave way to inflection. The layers cinched up, one by one. The last time I answered, the voice sounded almost human, almost. It said my name, not the attendant. My actual name. One night, a trucker lingered longer than usual. Big guy, bald, with a scar across his cheek. He bought a coffee, then leaned on the counter, eyes fixed on the phone. "You been here long?" he asked. "Couple months," I said. He nodded slowly. "Then you've had the calls." My skin went cold. "Yeah." He took a sip of his coffee. "Never answer after the first ring. That's when they're weakest. Second ring, they can hear you. Third ring." He trailed off, eyes distant. I asked him what happens at the third ring. He just shook his head and left without another word. Last night, it rang again. I didn't want to answer. I knew I shouldn't, but the sound cut through me, like hooks dragging me toward the receiver. I picked it up, silence, then faintly, the attendant. I pulled the phone away, ready to slam it down. But then the voice changed. It softened, warm, familiar. It became my sister's voice. "Hey," she said, "it's me. Don't hang up, please. I need you to listen." My heart nearly stopped. My sister lives 3 towns over. She doesn't even know this number. "This isn't real," I whispered. Her voice cracked, begging. "Please just listen. Don't hang up. Not yet." My hand trembled. The cord coiled tight around my wrist. And then the line went dead. I dropped the phone. Stood frozen in the silence. And from somewhere inside the store, not over the phone, not outside, I heard it. A whisper. Right behind me. "Attendant." It's easy to ignore what you see outside. It's harder to ignore what's knocking from inside. After the calls, after the man at pump 3, I stopped pretending this was a normal job. This wasn't a gas station anymore. It was a cage, a stage. A place where rules were the only thing keeping me alive. The phone, the chime, the pumps. Each one testing me, pushing me closer to breaking. And then, there was the basement. Every gas station has its secrets. Here, the secret was a door. Down the narrow hallway past the restroom, bolted into the tile floor, sat a heavy steel hatch with a padlock. At first, I thought it was just storage, an old tornado shelter, something practical, but it didn't fit. The door was older than the rest of the building, paint flaking off like dry scabs, handle worn smooth by hands that didn't belong to this generation. It smelled of rust, mold, and something faintly sour, like rotting fruit. On my second shift, I saw the rule taped to the break room wall. "Do not, under any circumstances, open the basement door." I laughed back then. Thought it was a joke. Now I knew better. It was a Tuesday. Slow night. Around 3 a.m. the lot was empty. I was sitting behind the counter, fighting sleep, when I heard it. A sound I wasn't supposed to hear. Knock. Soft. Muffled. Coming from the hallway. At first, I thought it was the bathroom. Maybe a customer I'd missed. But when I walked back, the hall was empty. I stood there, staring at the steel hatch. Knock knock, 2 sharp raps. Definite, from the other side. I froze. The rule echoed in my head like a warning bell. Do not, under any circumstances, open the basement door. I turned and walked away. Fast. The next night, it got worse. This time, the knock came earlier. Louder. More insistent. And then, a voice. At first it didn't sound human. Just wet sounds, guttural syllables scraping together in the dark. Like something learning to shape words. Then it spoke. My name. Drawn out, mangled, syllables stretched too far. Like someone trying on my name for the first time, rolling it around their tongue until it bled. I felt my knees go weak. My hand brushed against my key ring. The padlock key was there. Always had been. I never used it, never even questioned why. But in that moment, the weight of it felt magnetic. The voice pressed closer. Leet. Me, woot. Not a plea, not desperation, a command. It's hard to explain the pull of that voice. It wasn't just sound. It was gravity. Each syllable dragged me forward, step by step, until I was standing over the hatch, my key in my hand. My thumb against the teeth of the lock. It would be so easy. One turn, one click. I leaned closer. The smell seeped through the cracks. Damp earth, iron, something alive that shouldn't be. Please, it whispered, closer to human now. Almost convincing. My fingers trembled. My breath came shallow. The rule screamed in my head. But so did the thought. What if someone really is down there? What if it's just a test, and I'm failing it by doing nothing? The key scraped against the lock. The chime rang. The sound of the door opening at the front of the station cut through my trance like a blade. I jolted upright, key falling from my hand. The voice cut off instantly. I ran to the counter. It was just a customer. Middle-aged guy, plaid shirt, tired eyes. Bought a pack of gum, nodded, and left. He never knew he'd saved my life. When I looked back down the hall, the hatch was silent, still, as if nothing had happened. I didn't go near the basement again for the rest of the shift. But when dawn broke and I finally walked out, something caught my eye. The padlock. It was lying on the floor. And the basement door. It was open. Not much, just an inch. Just enough for darkness to spill through, blacker than it should have been. As I stared, something moved behind it. Slow, patient, waiting. I slammed the door shut and locked it again, hands shaking so hard I dropped the key twice. But deep down, I knew the truth. The rules weren't just to keep us safe. They were to keep whatever was down there in. That was the night I stopped sleeping. Because no matter how many locks I check, no matter how many rules I follow, I can still hear the knocking. And every night, it sounds more like me. Sometimes the silence is worse than the knocking. Because silence makes you wonder if it's waiting for you to break first. I don't remember the last time I slept. Real sleep, I mean. The kind where you close your eyes, sink into dreams, and wake up rested. Now it's just dozing, half aware, jerked awake by sounds that aren't there. The chime, the phone, a knock at the door. Sometimes I sit up in bed, certain I've heard the man at pump 3 scratching at my window, only to find nothing but empty glass and the reflection of my own hollow eyes. The gas station follows me everywhere. It's not just a job anymore. It's a parasite. And I think it's winning. The rules stopped feeling like rules a long time ago. They're rituals now. I don't unlock the doors at night. I ward off the things outside. I don't answer the chime. I acknowledge whatever comes through. I don't hang up the phone. I reject the voice that hunts me. The gas station isn't a store anymore. It's a church. And I'm the priest. Every shift feels like a sermon, where my life is the sacrifice and my obedience is the prayer. Customers don't notice. They come in for cigarettes and snacks, grumble about prices, swipe their cards, and leave. They don't know the blood in my veins is pounding so hard I can barely hear them. They don't know that behind my forced smile, I'm begging the rules to hold just one more night. The worst part isn't the nights anymore, it's the days. Because even when I'm not there, I still hear it. The chime. That bright, cheerful little sound that means someone's entered the store. I hear it in my apartment, in the shower, walking down the aisle of the grocery store. And sometimes I answer it. Reflexively, turning my head, nodding, whispering, welcome in. People notice, they stare, I don't care anymore. The pumps haunt me too. Whenever I drive, I glance in the mirror and swear I see someone standing beside my car, staring. Not long enough to be sure, but long enough to make me speed up and grip the wheel until my knuckles go white. And the phone. Last week, I unplugged mine. Cell and landline both. Didn't matter. It still rang. Some of the locals know. They won't say it outright, but you can hear it in the way they talk. The old woman who buys scratch-offs every Friday, she won't make eye contact with me anymore. Just slides the bills across the counter, takes her tickets, and leaves without a word. The trucker with the scar, he came back once, stood staring at the pumps for a long time, then muttered, "You shouldn't still be here," before driving off. And one night, 2 teenagers came in for beer, laughing, drunk, thinking they were invincible. When they saw me, they stopped. Their smiles died. One of them whispered to the other, "That's him. That's the new attendant." I asked what they meant, but they just shoved their cash on the counter and bolted. They didn't come back. A week ago, something strange happened. Nothing. No man at pump 3. No phone calls. No basement knocks. Just silence. You'd think I'd be relieved. You'd think I'd be grateful for a quiet night. But the silence was worse. It stretched and stretched until I couldn't breathe. Until every second felt like a test. Like something was waiting to see how long it would take me to crack. I started pacing the aisles, muttering the rules under my breath like prayers. I checked the padlock on the basement door 5 times in an hour. I stared at the phone until I thought I'd go insane, begging it to ring just so the waiting would end. And for one terrible moment, I thought about breaking a rule on purpose, just to feel something. That's when I realized, the rules aren't just keeping me alive, they're changing me, wearing me down. And I don't know how much longer I can follow them. Because the longer I stay here, the more I want to. The more I need to, and I'm not sure if that's me thinking. Or the gas station. The night settled in like a heavy blanket over the gas station. Every fluorescent light flickered nervously, and the hum of the refrigeration unit seemed louder than usual, almost shouting in the emptiness. I knew what was coming. Somehow, I could feel it deep in my bones. The rules, every one I had broken pressed on me now, each a tiny whip crack of warning. The chime had started again, faintly at first, almost polite, but growing steadily into a relentless metallic insistence. I could feel the vibrations in the floor through my shoes, as if the station itself were trembling. I moved cautiously, footsteps measured, heart hammering, every nerve screaming. Shadows stretched unnaturally, twisting into shapes that didn't belong. The aisles seemed longer than they should be, shelves bending in impossible ways as though the station itself was alive, waiting. Then I saw it. Just a flicker at first, a movement out of the corner of my eye. Too fast to be human, too deliberate to be an accident. My breath caught. It wasn't a person. The shadows moved as one with it, curling around its shape like smoke. I caught a glint like steel, then it disappeared into the darkness, leaving only the chime. My mind tried to rationalize. Maybe it was just a trick of the lights, a loose wire, fatigue, but something primal told me otherwise. I remembered the rules. Never look directly at it. Move only when the chime stops. Hold your breath when it approaches. I had broken too many of them already. Panic rose, but I forced myself to obey. My survival depended on it. The chime stopped abruptly, leaving a deafening silence. I froze, heartbeat echoing in my ears. A cold wind brushed the back of my neck. My eyes darted toward the back room, the door. It seemed darker than before, almost consuming the surrounding wall. Something inside me demanded that I stay away. Instinct screamed, but I knew. The source of the terror, the reason the rules existed. It was behind that door. I stepped forward, each movement careful, deliberate, counting in my head. 1, 2, 3, the floorboards creaking beneath me with a sound far too loud. The air grew heavier, metallic, and my lungs ached from holding my breath as a shadow emerged slowly from the darkness, elongated, wrong, unhuman. I dared a glance. Mistake. The figure wasn't entirely visible, but its presence twisted reality around it. Eyes? No. Glints, cold and intelligent, stared from the shifting darkness. Limbs bent in impossible ways, and yet it moved with terrifying grace. Every rule I had ignored flashed in my mind. I could feel the weight of the station pressing down, suffocating, bending reality. The chime rang again, loud, torturous, each note slicing through the air, echoing inside my skull. I could hear its breath, or perhaps it was just the darkness itself exhaling. The rules had held it back this long, but now, I was at the breaking point. I lunged for the emergency breaker, the only weapon I had prepared. Sparks flew, lights flickered violently, and the creature shrieked a sound that seemed to claw into my very soul. Shadows twisted and collapsed inward like smoke being sucked into a vacuum. It was wrong. Every instinct screamed that shouldn't exist, and yet, it did. My survival depended on knowledge, on fear, on the rules I had once ignored. I activated the breaker fully. The station shook. Lights exploded into blinding flashes. The chime finally ceased, replaced by a silence so thick it was almost physical. The creature's form shuddered and dissolved into the darkness, leaving only the echo of its existence. I stumbled out into the main area, knees weak, hands trembling. The air was heavy with ozone blood and something undefinable. I had survived. Or so I thought. The rules weren't gone. They were a lingering presence, a reminder etched into the air. I realized the grand climax wasn't the battle. It was the revelation. The rules were never about keeping me safe. They were about keeping it contained, restrained only by obedience and fear. I locked the doors, glanced at the street outside, and felt the weight of inevitability. The night had ended, but the war wasn't over. Somewhere in the folds of darkness it waited, patient, hungry, and ready for the next mistake. The doors are locked, the lights are dim. The silence is thick and suffocating. I survived, but nothing will ever feel normal again. The rules aren't gone. They linger in every shadow, in every flicker of light, in every chime. Waiting, watching, and I know. It's only a matter of time before someone else ignores them. Because some rules are made to be broken. Some are made to keep monsters contained.